Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Casper, the boy diviner, and I'm using a new camera today, so I'm trying to figure it out. So please forgive me if I keep looking away or looking very shifty. But I wanted to get a new camera, I wanted to invest more in my channel, and this was not a cheap purchase, but I saved up from all the tarot readings I've done in the past year or so. Also from a bit of ad revenue from YouTube, I managed to get this new camera, so I hope this works out. Today I wanted to talk about decks that I use for shadow work, and not specifically about shadow work per se, but I'll cover shadow work a bit just in case some of you don't know what that means. There is no full definition of what shadow work is, I would say, and there's no right way or wrong way to do shadow work. There is no prescribed steps you need to take. You can go online, do some research yourself, but it's not a witchy thing. It is actually steeped in psychology, and whether this psychology theories are out of date, if they're current, I have no idea, because I have a feeling it's a bit archaic. We can just try it out. There is no harm in trying things out and seeing if it works for you. From my experience and from my belief, I do feel like it does help you a little bit. I'm not a person who does shadow work like every day, unless you count meditation part of shadow work, because it can contribute to integrating your shadow. But I think before I go into such detail, I really need to cover the definition here that I found online from some random site. Let me read it out. Shadow work is the process of working with our shadow selves to eradicate their negative effects in our life and to integrate the separate parts of ourselves into a whole. So the theory is that when we are embarrassed of something, we feel like society doesn't accept this part of us, we repress it, we keep it down, we temp down on it, and it becomes such a closed kind of self that you don't even recognize. This is why even though you might act on it, it doesn't mean you accept it. This is why I feel like there are a lot of homophobic people who are actually homosexual, deep down inside, and they are repressing this side of themselves because they hate it so much, and that it lashes out as hatred to others. So if we learn do shadow work consistently, learn how to accept parts of ourselves that we don't accept and we keep rejecting, maybe we can become better people. The ways to do it, I don't want to get too deep here, but for example, we can ask ourselves questions and use the tarot or oracles to help us to accept these parts of ourselves or get the answers that we need. So I wanted to talk about some of the decks that I use for shadow work. The first deck I wanted to talk about is the Empress. The first deck I wanted to talk about is the Thoth deck. I think the Thoth deck is a really wonderful deck. Really meant for just specifically shadow work, darker, deeper things. It is pretty neutral, which is a good thing, because actually, even though shadow work can be quite confronting, and I tend to use decks that really show the truth and really show aggressively what they're trying to tell you. This one is not so like in your face. So if you're new to shadow work, I would recommend using the Thoth, Crowley's Thoth. Let me show you some of the cards, because it's sort of pippish. It's not completely a pip deck, but oh gosh. So you can see that I'm trying to figure out the lighting here, and I hope you can actually see the card. So hopefully you can see the card. But everyone should know the Thoth deck. Everyone should know how it looks, you know? It's a beautiful deck, honestly. The Thoth deck is more beautiful than I thought it would be when I received it. So I hope you guys take a look and Google some of the images. If these don't appear, I'll just show you some random images here and there of the Thoth deck. That's the Thoth deck, and that's the first one I would recommend. It is not too expensive. It is a mass market deck, so I feel like it's a very accessible deck to start with. If this aesthetic doesn't fit you, there's another mass market one I want to recommend, and it's called the Barbara Walker Tarot, and it's a very witchy deck. It's very confronting. It is quite dark, so it's darker than the Thoth deck, but I really enjoy the imagery here. It comes in a tin, so it is pretty small. It's a tiny deck, so it really depends on whether you work with small decks at all, but I really enjoy it. Okay, so you can see it's pretty it's pretty dark, it's pretty 80s. I think that's the time. It's pretty American 80s. So it depends on whether you enjoy it or not. Like I said, if you enjoy this kind of imagery, it can be quite confronting, to be honest, you know? Like, can you see this one? This one is pretty dark. like pretty dark dark cards. Very beautiful cards. I like the art a lot. Barbara Walker, amazing person, and it's very pagan. I would say this is a really good deck for shadow work. I really enjoy the imagery. I feel like it's quite confronting, and it does have keywords. One of my favorite cards is so confronting. I think it's the Six of Cups. So the Six of Cups is usually about nostalgia, about your past. This deck makes you really confront it in a different way. Every time we want a card from a deck, it always is so hard to find in the end. Six of Cups, I found it. So it says childhood. Can you see that? Childhood. When your mother is like so huge and you're so small. This is very typical of shadow work, where you confront the past, confront how adults treat you when you're young. I think that all those are very formative years of your life, and that's why it is very pertinent to confront that with shadow work. And this deck is great for that. That is a great example. Another good example is the Queen of Swords, which is Kali. Traditionally very fierce, traditionally very killer, and I feel like this card really is great. It's very confronting, and that's what you kind of need in a shadow deck, to confront those fears, confront what you're ashamed of, confront all that repressed emotion. So if you're a person who hates I don't know, something, seeing how that hate looks like manifested in front of you really is quite awakening, I would say. So this is why I pick kind of more violent decks in a way for shadow work. Those are two of the mass market decks I want to recommend. The third one is also another mass market deck, and I feel like this is also very good. And it's the Mary L Tarot. I feel like this is not a stranger to anyone. The Mary L Tarot is very famous. It's very well known in the tarot world, and it is very confronting also. Great for shadow work. Can you see how deep and dark the imagery is? For example, this one, the Two of Wands. Instead of seeing in the traditional RWS, you are a person looking at what might come. You're holding a globe and you're looking and thinking about what's to come. The Two of Wands here is just darkness right in front of you. It makes you confront that shadow, makes you confront the unknown. So if if you're doing a shadow work, you might ask things like, why am I feeling so upset about this? Then you draw it out, and then it's like, oh, it's because you are facing your shadow. That's the first step. That's the first question. Then you ask again, why am I not seeing my shadow for what it is? Instead, I'm obscuring it like that. Then you do another reading, for example. Of course, the Mary L is kind of a mixed bag. There are more gentle cards as well, like this one. Beautiful. And also very abstract ones like this angel here. I have the second edition, so the Three of Swords look like this. Whereas the other Three of Swords is more, I think it's a bird. So it really depends. But the imagery for the Mary L is really deep. I would say it's a great deck for shadow work because of how deep it is. I know I'm spewing out random words, and I don't know how to justify why all these decks work for me as shadow work. But I would say that in a shadow work deck, you want something confronting and yet illuminating. So it needs to be confronting in a way that wakes you up. Why am I rejecting this part of myself? How can I integrate this part into myself? And I feel like the Mary L, the Barbara Walker, and the Thoth deck are all really good. The Thoth deck, I think, requires more study. So I would say those are the three mass market decks that I feel like really work in hand with shadow work. But if you really need something confronting, something that really scares you a bit, make you shake in your boot, I would really recommend the Goliath Tarot. I received this from Goliath a while ago, and I've only worked with it like maybe 5 times just because of how confronting some of the imagery can be. I have went through something recently with someone putting down my work on YouTube, making me feel not worthy, and someone I respected. And I don't know why I'm letting that power go to this person and feeling so invalidated by him. So I'm intending to deal with that shadow, that unhappiness. Why am I doing this? Why am I letting myself be like that? And why am I yearning for this validation externally from this person, this man? So I'm planning to use the Goliath Tarot to help me with that. So yeah. This deck has a lot of like tentacles, all that kind of nifty stuff. Beautiful, beautiful deck. So anyway, because of my camera stuff, I adjusted the lighting. I hope it works now. I hope it's better now, at least for the cards. I might seem a bit dark, but yeah, look at how powerful this is, the Sacred Fire. So this deck is a real shadow work deck because it doesn't only contain the 78 Arcana, but actually contains a lot of extra Oracle cards. The Hierophant. Look at how a little like this deck is a bit like grotesque in a way, but very confronting, very alive. So I'm planning to use this to deal with some of the issues that I have been facing and trying to understand more about myself and why I give power to other people, you know? So this is the fourth deck I talked about that I own. This is not a mass market deck. This deck is not cheap, but it's very big. The quality is really good and I really enjoy it. If you want to see more, you can always look at my walkthrough in that card up there. The last one is also another indie deck, and this one I think everyone is sick of me talking about it. It's the Holy Spectrum, Tarot of the Holy Spectrum, and I really enjoy this deck and I feel like it's a great shadow work deck. Why? There are a lot of reasons, but for example, the backings are just pure black, so you kind of feel like you're reaching into the shadow to understand yourself, understand something. And I also feel like the humans here look a bit alien for some reason. I think they're all digitally drawn, which is something I'm not partial to. So it's like very, very interesting. It's a very interesting deck. And I really feel like it makes you face your shadow. So I do enjoy this deck a lot. There's a darkness to it, but yet it is still kind of accessible and can be used for almost anything, including shadow work. And that's why I kind of recommend this deck, because it can act in so many different ways. Apart from that, I don't want to show too much of it because I've been talking about it so much. I have not done a walkthrough of this on my channel, so let me know if you're interested in hearing me talk about my thoughts about this deck. I'll be happy to reorder it, show it one by one, and talk about my feelings about each card. And this is the first edition. I don't have the second edition. I do prefer some of the images in the second edition, but there are some that I prefer in the first, so I'm just keeping my version. I'm not gonna buy the new one. Thank God. Okay, these are all the decks that I own that I feel like can be used for shadow work. It's my top 5 decks for shadow work after all. But there are some honorary mentions that I want to talk about that I don't own. So one of them is actually the Goliath Tarot, and this is not an expensive tarot deck. I wanted to talk about it because it is very dark. I think it's based on the Night Vale series that is on a podcast or something, but I don't watch it. At the same time, I feel like it's a very dark deck that can really wake you up. It might be too gruesome and too dark for some people. If you're new to shadow work, you might not want to have such a confronting deck. For example, you wouldn't want to get the Goliath Tarot, you wouldn't want to get the Goliath Tarot, you maybe want to start with the Thoth or the Mary L, for example. But if you are really you really need something to wake you up, that is a great deck to use. The second deck I wanted to talk about is also not a mass market deck. It's the Goliath Tarot, and this is a tarot deck that I also wanted for a long time. I feel like it's a very gentle deck, but yet very awakening. So it's something I don't know. I feel like it can be good for shadow work. I have no real reason why, because I've not experienced it, but I feel like there is a lot of potential in that one, because there's the darker, deeper major arcana and the cuter, lighter minor arcana that has many messages written within that I think can help. Thank you to the person who actually suggested I do this video. Again, I'm so bad with screenshotting comments. I think I took a screenshot. Let me check again. Yep, I can't find a screenshot again. Someone suggested that I do this video, so I wanted to say thank you for that suggestion, and that's why I'm doing this video today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out, my channel. I hope this was useful. Let me know if you want to hear more about shadow work, if I should create a video just talking about how I do my shadow work specifically using decks, or if you want to hear something more generic, like something more general about how to approach shadow work, including like a meditation, all that. Happy Lunar New Year, and take care guys. Bye!